Welcome back to Buy or Buy. I mean, just look at this absolute magnificent piece of automotive architecture. We're talking about the stunning second-generation Bentley Azure. It's this massive four-seater convertible Grand Tourer, and historically speaking, it's incredibly significant. This is the exact vehicle that officially closed out the Rolls-Royce engineered Crewe platform era. It's hand-built, it's pillarless, and it is unapologetically grand. But is it actually worth your hard-earned money today?
So today, we're delivering the definitive, brutally honest buyer's guide for a car that demands total respect, but might literally empty your bank account in the process. We're going to look past the beautiful leather and the shining chrome to find out exactly what it costs to own a real piece of Crewe history.
787. From the spring of 2006 all the way through to January 2010, Bentley produced a total of just 787 units of this second-generation Azure. The extreme exclusivity of this hand-built Grand Tour really cannot be overstated. Just to put that into perspective, the very last one ever built was a Venusian gray Azure T. It rolled off the line in January 2010, right alongside the very last Brooklands Coupe. And that precise moment, that ended an entire lineage of Crewe-built convertible Bentleys forever.
Okay, let's dive right into the power plant. Underneath that massive hood sits the legendary 6.75-liter L-Series twin-turbo V8. Now, what's truly wild here is that this engine shares its fundamental architecture with the original 1959 block. Honestly, think about that for a second. By the time we get to 2006, practically every individual component had been progressively replaced over 5 decades. But the bore spacing, the bore size, and the basic pushrod 2-valve layout, they never changed. It's a living dinosaur in the absolute best way possible.
Now, there was a critical technical shift that happened early in the production run. If you're looking at a 2006 base Azure, you're getting the older Garrett T3 turbochargers and, well, a pretty antiquated 4-speed automatic transmission. But for 2007 and beyond, Bentley completely overhauled the setup. They brought in low-inertia Mitsubishi MHI turbochargers, and they finally swapped out that old 4-speed for a much more modern ZF 6-speed automatic. It was a real game-changer that dramatically changed how the car drives.
And then, Bentley decided they needed even more power. 738, that is the absolutely immense torque figure for the 2008 to 2009 Azure T variant. 500 horsepower, 738 pound-feet of torque, all in a luxury convertible. It's just a staggering amount of rotational force designed to move a very, very heavy object with total effortlessness.
And speaking of heavy objects, this car weighs 5,800 pounds. Let's just be clear about that. Bentley somehow expected you to cruise the twisting roads of the south of France in a 5,800-pound vehicle. Top up? Sure, it's a brilliantly sealed, silent Bentley Grand Tour. But top down? It is effectively a Bentley boat. And that multi-layer power-folding fabric roof? It's like a giant puzzle. It has 27 moving parts. 27! It relies on a whole network of hydraulic motors and electric latches to perform its mechanical ballet. And you better believe every single one of those 27 parts wants servicing. So look, the car has genuine prestige. It has Mulliner specifications, it has the Crewe lineage, but I'm dropping the romanticism right here. Let's enter the cross-examination phase of this guide because we really need to talk about the terrifying financial realities of this vehicle. The ownership economics are, quite frankly, catastrophic.
Let's walk through these devastating powertrain or pair numbers. This is where the dream meets reality. That beautifully historic 6.75-liter engine? Well, the cylinder head gasket is known to fail right between 60,000 and 80,000 miles, and because the engine literally has to come partway out of the chassis to fix it, you're looking at a $6,000 to $9,000 repair right out of the gate. Those twin Mitsubishi turbos we talked about, they fail too, and they cost $4,000 to $8,000 each. And if the previous owner neglected the fluid services on that ZF 6-speed gearbox, a valve body replacement will run you another $3,000 to $6,000.
Let's see how this builds, because stopping a 5,800-pound chassis is certainly not cheap either. The air suspension compressor and air springs will fail. That's $3,000 to $7,000. Standard brake rotors and pads, because those front discs are massive, they run $4,000 to $6,000 per axle. And if you have the optional carbon silicon carbide ceramic brakes, oh, brace yourself, that is $15,000 to $25,000 per axle. And remember that incredible roof with the 27 moving parts? When something goes wrong in that hydraulic system, you are looking at $8,000 to $15,000. And here's the kicker. Most independent shops absolutely will not touch this convertible top. It's simply too complex.
Which brings us to the labor.
because you can't just take this down the street to your local mechanic. You are entirely reliant on specialist labor. At Bentley dealers or recognized Crewe specialists, you are paying $200 to $300 per hour. These brutal labor rates are precisely what make these bespoke repairs so financially ruinous for the average buyer.
So the crucial point is, how does all of this reflect in the market? Well, the brutal math of ultra-luxury depreciation is on full display right here. Back in 2007, the original MSRP of this car was around $330,000. Today, a standard used example sits between $80,000 and $150,000. These cars have lost 50 to 70% of their original value. But here is my strict warning to you. The depreciation on this vehicle is not yet finished.
If we look at current piston heads and Haggerty data, we can break this down into clear pricing tiers. A clean standard Azure will cost you $80,000 to $150,000. Stepping up to the more powerful Azure T variants brings that up to $110,000 to $180,000. And for exceptional Mulliner specification cars, expect to pay up to $220,000. Over in the UK market, you're looking at roughly £80,000 to £140,000. These are very high entry costs for a vehicle carrying this much maintenance liability. So, where exactly does the Azure sit in the market landscape compared to its peers? Well, its hardtop sister car, the Brooklands Coupe, trades for $95,000 to $220,000, but it's even rarer, with only 426 built. The Arnage sedan, which shares the exact same engine and platform, is far cheaper, at $30,000 to $80,000, mostly because it's a volume four-door. An ultra-luxury peer like the Rolls-Royce Phantom Drophead sits much higher, at $150,000 to $300,000. But look at the bottom line here. The modern Bentley Continental GTC sits at just $50,000 to $100,000. Definitely keep that in mind. Because when we put the Azure head-to-head with the Continental GTC, I need to make it explicitly clear. The math just does not work for the Azure. Think about it. If you buy a 2007 to 2009 base Azure for $90,000 to $100,000, you're almost certainly looking at $20,000 to $30,000 in immediate deferred maintenance. Conversely, the Continental GTC sits between $50,000 and $100,000, has already absorbed its worst depreciation, is significantly more reliable, and is actually usable day to day. If you want a Bentley convertible you can actually drive, the Continental GTC is for sure the far superior buy.
Which leads us to a very sobering conclusion. The 2006 to 2010 Bentley Azure is a car that's depreciating $5,000 to $10,000 per year while actively costing you $15,000 to $25,000 per year just to own and maintain. Actually, scratch the idea of a daily driver. This vehicle only makes sense as a static collector piece. It's strictly for buyers who already have an existing relationship with a Crewe specialist and whose budgets absolutely do not blink at five-figure annual maintenance bills.
And so, it's time to drop the gavel. For anyone looking to actually drive this vehicle, the definitive final verdict on the second-generation Bentley Azure is a resounding buy. It's simply too ruinous. Let's shatter the window shopping fantasy right here. Before you get lured in by the prestige, the hand-stitched leather, and that incredible surge of twin-turbo V8 torque, you have to ask yourself one very real question. Do you have the stomach and the specialist for a $15,000 roof repair? Because if the answer is no, you just got to keep walking. Thanks for tuning into this guide on Buy or Buy. Make sure you hit subscribe for more brutally honest market realities, and we'll see you on the next one.